Hello everyone, it is Sunday the 2nd of April. Welcome back to the D3D4 football podcast dedicated to all things Leagues 1 and 2. Just a few moments ago we've had the finale of the EFL Trophy final. Bolton Wanderers smashing Plymouth Argyle 4-0. That was a real demolition job from them. I was anticipating quite a high scoring game, but I kind of thought the big goals on both sides, and Bolton just absolutely took them apart, and to win their first, I think it's their first trophy since maybe they previously won the EFL Trophy back when it was under a different name, I think back in the late 80s. So it's been a long time, and I think it's a nice example of the growth that we've seen from Bolton Wanderers over the last few seasons, from being on the brink of almost not existing to getting out of the fourth tier, getting up into the third tier, and could be two Wembley trips for them this season actually, if they make it through the playoffs as well. They're in a decent position right now, got to play out the end of this season, get to the playoffs, but we'll see going forwards. We're going to focus, however, on the league matches that were taking place on Saturday and as well some on Friday night. And I've got two people here to join me to go through it. It is myself, Edward Walker, joined by Chris Stringer and Harry Thomas. Chris, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been a nice weekend. I didn't travel to Wrexham yesterday, so I didn't have the I didn't have the joys of watching that. But yeah, lovely weather.
What was Fondop thinking there? Oh,
I'm not sure he was thinking, to be honest. I've seen the club are appealing it.
Is that going to work?
Nope, not a chance.
Yeah, I've seen the clips. I'm not sure I agree as well. Harry, yourself?
Yeah, very nice, thank you. We had the pleasure of playing on Friday night, so I've had a full weekend, so I've just been making most of the good weather, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been quite nice, actually, I suppose. How's it April? Like, where's the year going? How are we almost in April already, and we've got... Well, the season's going to be up in 2 months, isn't it? I can't believe it.
Feels like it barely kicked off.
Oh, yeah, it goes so quick, and then it's always that, even though it's only like a couple of months, it's always that period between the season ending and beginning that always feels the longest.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just not nice. A reminder before we get going, this podcast is in partnership with The Big Step, which tackles football's relationship with gambling. There is an excessive presence of gambling adverts within football, and The Big Step continues to do great work to raise awareness about the dangers of gambling and the impact it can have on so many people's lives. Big thank you as well to all our Patron members. Those who sign up to little as just £1 per month can get access to additional D3D4 daily podcast episodes produced throughout the week. They are produced by our co-host James Richards, and they focus in depth on individual clubs and provide previews to some of the most eye-catching fixtures in League 1 and League 2 each weekend. You can sign up now at patreon.com/D3D4 football. We'll get going, and we'll begin as always with the world's best third tier. The cat did not like that. Wow, that was amazing timing. Is he alright?
He's absolutely fine. He's just come in and announced it to us.
Does he want me to start with League 2 instead? I could do that.
I really hope you keep that in.
I will keep that. That was amazing timing. Wow, that's really put me off. Where was I? Just starting League 1. Right. I want to start League 1 with a game that I've invented. The game is called Where the F Did This Come From? And it is a game where I challenge one of my co-hosts to explain to us all what on earth happened in a football scoreline that just no one saw coming. Harry, you're going to play the game for us this week, and try to explain to us where the F did Charlton Athletic 6, Shrewsbury Town 0 come from?
The short answer to that is I have absolutely no idea.
Fair enough.
I'd written in my notes, before a ball had been kicked this weekend, hands up anybody who thought that this match would be the first one that we covered on the podcast this week. Both of these sides are sort of upper middle League 1. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they're both definitely going to be in League 1 next season. I don't think either of them are close enough to the playoffs to really be in a shout with that. So, in theory, this looked like a dead rubber. And sometimes they do end up producing the most entertaining games, don't they? One thing I will say before I go into the nitty gritty of it is we have seen this Charlton side a few times this year. They absolutely ripped Plymouth apart earlier in the year. That 5-1 win. I think they had a 4-4 against Ipswich, didn't they? So they've got it in the locker. And I think one of the things that's been a bit frustrating this season is the inconsistency in that team. On the day, they can turn up and do something like this, and then they'll go 3 games and look like a completely different side. So if they can channel this into something next season, Dean Holden could have a real good shot of pushing for promotion with this team. It was actually quite an even start to the game. but Charlton went ahead on 27 minutes thanks to a perfectly hit free kick from Scott Fraser. Found its way into the top corner. I think, Ed, you tweeted out the video of it, didn't you? It's one of those. It's just perfectly hit over the wall into the top corner. Goalkeeper didn't stand a chance. Albie Morgan then found himself with far too much space after some good play on the right from Jezeren Raksaki, and he was able to fire in his third goal of the season to double the Addicks' lead. Shrewsbury's defence, like so many that have come before them this season, just weren't able to contain Raksaki. He was all over the place, and he was able to put the game to bed before half time. He step-overed his way into the box and tucked a deft finish beyond Marco Morosi. Miles Leaburn made it 4 just after the hour. Terrell Thomas found him in the Shrewsbury half, and he danced around with the ball before placing a long-range effort into the bottom corner.
It's a weird goal, this, isn't it? Because it's...
Yeah, I watched it back.
It's like you expect to do that in the box, not 30 yards out.
Yeah, I couldn't make my mind up if it was really bad positioning from Morosi or whether he just saw it late because Leaburn had been closed down. But either way, yeah, it was one of the gentlest shots that'll ever go in from that far out. It was a nice finish, though. Found the corner well from distance. And things then went from bad to worse. Tom Flanagan was shown a second yellow card after handling in the box, and Leaburn got his second of the game from the spot. Macaulay Bond then wrapped up the scoring in added time. He actually blocked his own teammate's long-range effort before composing himself to score his first goal since returning on loan in January. And yeah, like I was saying before, Dean Holden described this as a complete performance, and I'd have to agree with that. Every part of that Charlton side played the socks off this weekend, and they had a brilliant game, and especially that attack. I mean, one player we definitely won't be seeing in this Charlton side next season, unfortunately, is Raksaki.
Oh, what a player.
Yeah, anyone who's a fan of the lower leagues, enjoy him whilst we've got him, because we've got 7 or 8 games left, and then we will, I think I can probably pretty confidently say we'll never see him in League One or League Two again. He's absolutely brilliant. I haven't seen a team really work out an effective way of stopping him this year. And I'd imagine he might well go into the Championship next season, but I'd love to see him given a bit of a run in the Crystal Palace team.
It's quite encouraging, actually, because that's a really young Charlton frontline that started yesterday. Raksaki's 20. Leaburn's, I think I mentioned him last week, he's got more goal involvements than any teenager in the EFL at the moment. He looks like a guy who's going to get poached by someone higher up in the summer for sure. He's got such big potential. And then they're playing young Tyrese Campbell on the left-hand side as well. It's... You've got to love when your team's lining up with a front three that young that looks that good.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you say, it's just a case of how many of them can they hold on to in the summer.
Yeah, I wonder if they think George Dobson's a really valuable player as well. What he does at the base of midfield lets Morgan and Fraser be so much more expressive. I can't help but feel, does this still a little bit freak? Like Shrewsbury should not be sipping 6 goals. Something's gone wrong from their perspective.
Yeah, I think I just would chalk it down to a bad day at the office. Obviously, I know it was already 4-0 at that point, but losing Flanagan for the end of the game doesn't help.
Yeah, not ideal, because this, as we've said before, is a tight group of players. There's a small core they got together there, and you lose one of them for a period of time, and you do feel it with the players having to take into a different position to them. But what a result for Charlton Athletic at the Valley. It wasn't the only big win of the weekend, though, Chris. There was also one at Oakwell. Barnsley 5, Morecambe 0.
Yeah, Barnsley making up for that 3-1 defeat to Exeter. They were absolutely dominant in this one. Morecambe, I mean, I think the less said, the better for them. It was a really, really poor performance, especially at the back. I mean, that sort of goes without saying when you concede 5. And I think Connor Ripley will come away from this quite frustrated with his performance. And it extends their winless run to 8 games. It's really not the time of the season you want to be falling into this kind of horrible run. But Barnsley absolutely brilliant. Morecambe really low on confidence with, an own goal, goalkeeper errors. Not nice for them. First goal followed from a free kick, which was saved by Ripley, but parried straight back into the feet of Devante Cole. I mean, in his defence, it was a pretty thunderous low free kick, but you've got to feel he should be parrying it out for a corner, and instead Devante Cole just finished from about 4 or 5 yards out, and that was 4 minutes into the game. So, you've got straight in with a goal there, and then the second one, 15 minutes later, a long range shot, again parried back out into open play by Ripley. Barnsley have picked it up on the right flank and brought the ball back in, and Simeo has somehow turned it into his own goal. I'm not entirely sure how he managed that. And then goal number 3, again, 10 minutes later, 32 minutes in, Herbie Kane Scored following a really bit of sloppy defending, and he managed to get the ball on the edge of the penalty area, and it was a really nice curling finish into the bottom right corner. And then goal number 4, they just kept coming, and I would have hated to be a Morecambe fan on this day. It was just a really, really disappointing performance. Devante Cole got his second. There was a long ball pass from about 40 yards out, and it just seemed to cut through every defender. Not because it was a particularly good pass. I mean, it was a decent pass, but Morecambe's defence and midfield just looked asleep. And Devante Cole doesn't miss when he's given a chance that close to goal. At 4-0, Morecambe did manage to sort of get themselves trying to, work a bit, but, 4 goals down, it's kind of the wrong time to start playing, and they did hit the post. But it wasn't enough, and Barnsley, just to rub salt in the wound, got a 5th in the 93rd minute. Really easy header from a poorly defended corner. And it means that Morecambe now are 4 points from safety, having played 2 more games than the other sides. And, if you've read into their off-the-field situation, things don't feel very comfortable with them. But for Barnsley, 75 points, still very much on the heels of Plymouth, who are on 80 points, so 5 points away from those automatics, but also very comfortably in the playoff spots, 11 points above Derby in 7th place. And just, I think, really hoping to get as much momentum going forwards for what will likely be a playoff campaign.
Still an outside chance of automatics, you'd have to say, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
for
that
sure.
defeat to Exeter doesn't help them. It certainly does knock the momentum a bit, leave them a bit further back, but it does feel like this automatic race, we're looking at 4 teams who are going to end up on very high points, and at least one of them isn't going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, Barnsley are excellent. I'm only saying that I think they'll probably get the playoffs just because Ipswich are in very similar form and 3 points ahead of them. So I think if anyone's going to sneak in, it will probably be Ipswich, but, never say never.
Nope, and they're certainly eyeing up each other's results at the moment. And speaking of Ipswich, Derby County 0, Ipswich Town 2, 7 wins in a row for the Tractor Boys, 8 clean sheets in a row. Everything is just clicking beautifully for Ipswich Town right now. I remember we did a previous episode of the podcast a bit earlier on in the season, a bit earlier on this year, and Ipswich were out of form. They were struggling to string wins together. You felt concerns that their chances of automatic promotion were slipping away from them. You also felt a bit concerned about how Kieran McKenna might end up being judged in the season if he wasn't to win promotion with this side. What I do remember mentioning at that time, though, is the underlying numbers that Ipswich Town have been there and they've had all season long. They're in that perfect bracket of being a side that creates loads of opportunities in a game and gives very little away. And the Tractor Boys right now are that exact team. It's just so complete from front to back. Christian Walton is in fine form and goal. Massimo Luongo, so good in midfield alongside Sam Morsey. Connor Chaplin's up to 17 league goals this season. It's the clear best goals return of his entire senior career, and he's had some decent seasons up to now with previous clubs. It's the first goal for Ipswich that I really do want to focus on. It's just the dream counter-attack. You see so many counter-attack opportunities when watching a football game. Most end up breaking down because an effective counter-attack is actually a really difficult move to get right. When it works like this one does, there's few goals out there that I actually enjoy watching more than this. Originates with Christian Walton catching a Derby corner, throwing it out wide to Nathan Broadhead on the right flank. It's a cross-field ball to Wes Burns on the other side, and a header back in field into the path of Connor Chaplin, who's lost past Joe Wildsmith. It goes from back to front in 10 seconds. Just a beautifully worked goal. Just true definition of how you want to do a counter-attack. Really nice. Derby do have an Aaron Cashin goal disallowed from a corner. I'm not quite sure why. Tried to look at it multiple times. There's nothing wrong with Cashin's actual attack of the ball. I think it might have something to do with David McGoldrick, who is in an offside position as the ball goes very close to him. But I'm still not quite sure on that. I'd quite like to know what the actual reason was for that getting disallowed. Ipswich sealed the win, though, with another great counter-attack. Wes Burns, player always been known for his pace. He just speeds past Aaron Cashin on the break. His shot at Joe Wildsmith is saved, but that loose ball is collected by George Hurst and fired in. That's a third game in a row that he's now scored. Really good impact on loan from Blackburn Rovers. There's nothing more to say than just how phenomenal Ipswich Town look right now. Just 2 points between them and the top 2 at the moment, and they'll be very pleased with the result that came through at Hillsborough, Harry. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Lincoln City 1.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, with obviously Barnsley winning very emphatically, Ipswich winning against another promotion rival. This was such an important game for Sheffield Wednesday, and of course with Plymouth not playing this weekend. And so it's just so frustrating for them to be dropping points again after that incredible 23-game unbeaten run. They've now played 5 without a win. And Plymouth have got a game in hand, and if they win that, they're back on top, and Wednesday move back down to second. 1-1 is a scoreline that doesn't really reflect the stats from the game. Wednesday had 66% possession, and they had 21 shots compared to Lincoln's 5. But of those 21, only 5 shots were on target, and more importantly, only one of them went in. The goal was a trademark Michael Smith header. He managed to get in front of Lincoln keeper Carl Rushworth from a Will Vaulks cross to put Wednesday ahead. And they would have hoped that taking the lead for the first time in 4 games might have brought some confidence back into the side. They did have opportunities to extend the lead, but they were unable to take them. And on 28 minutes, Lincoln pulled level. Harry Boyes won the ball on halfway, and he was able to run into the Wednesday half under very little pressure. One thing that's concerning to see there is just that he wasn't closed down at any point. He took a speculative effort at goal that was spilled by David Stockdale straight into the path of Danny Mandrew, who was able to tap home. Lincoln had chances of their own to go in ahead at half-time as they grew into the game, but they weren't able to take them. And then the second half was 45 minutes of constant Sheffield Wednesday pressure. Lincoln didn't register a single shot all half. Instead, they just sat back and soaked up everything that Darren Moore's side threw at them, helped mostly by wasteful finishing from the home side. Wednesday's best chance to win it came in added time. Smith again headed the ball on target, but Boyes was there on the line to clear it and ensure that the game finished level. Wednesday are technically still top of the table, so any panic surrounding this drop in form does need to be taken with that in mind. But to put it bluntly, they just don't look the same team without George Byers and Josh Windass. No. I don't think it's a coincidence that Byers went off in that Portsmouth game that was the last time that they won, and that Josh Windass got injured in that Bolton game that was then followed up with their first loss in months. Hearing what Darren Moore said, it sounds like Windass is maybe a couple of weeks away from coming back, and he said he's hopeful that George Byers will be back before the end of the season, but
just in time for the playoffs.
Yeah, it could be too little too late for this title race, couldn't it? But that's a very good point. They might be coming back in at just the right time if they do miss out on those top 2.
It's weird looking at a team top of the table and feeling they're in disarray at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. Yeah, it's not helped by the amazing form that Ipswich are suddenly in, the momentum that Barnsley have, Argyle even still. I mean, we'll be interested to see how they respond to this Wembley defeat, but they're in a favourable position, the chance to go ahead of them. I don't get Lincoln, Harry. I haven't got Lincoln all season. They seem to be just really turn up to these big games. They've been a burden on Sheffield Wednesday this season. They've been a burden on Ipswich. They've been a burden on Argyle, and again, they played them so far. And then they're just quite average against everyone else. Like, how do they seem to do it against these top sides?
It doesn't make any sense, really, does it? Because, you look at the squad, and it's very much a League One squad, isn't it? I don't think that there's a lack of quality to the point where they'd be going down, but they also haven't got that quality. They haven't got one real standout player who you think would sort of propel them up into the top half of the league. Especially that home form that they've had all season kind of encapsulates it perfectly, doesn't it?
I'm still gutted Peterborough beat them. I want them to go the whole season unbeaten at home. Would have been great.
But yeah, 1 loss, 4 wins and 13 draws, and that's kind of them in a nutshell this year, isn't it?
There's clubs that don't go 13 draws in a whole season, never mind just at home.
I know. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I don't get them at all.
Yeah, I think
they have got 5 more draws than the next team below them, like in bulk this season. 19 draws. I think next behind them is Fleetwood.
I mean, let's be fair. It's a big reason why they've had that home record, because they just go and shut up shop when they get the chance. They get the goal, or they hang on for a 0-0.
I was going to say they're tough to break down, but like I mentioned, Sheffield Wednesday created a lot of chances this weekend against them. It wasn't for want of trying. It just, on a different day, I suppose that they could have had 5 or 6, couldn't they? But
does it leave you a bit encouraged that Sheffield Wednesday could perhaps get back into form? Because I do maintain they've got favourable fixtures. I mean, they've had some hiccups recently. That defeat to Forest Green. They rescued a point with Cheltenham in midweek. Now this draw with Lincoln. It's not ideal for a club chasing the title. But I still look at that fixture list and think you've got the chance here to go and get yourself back on track.
Well, their Easter fixtures, I think, Oxford away on Friday and Accrington at home on Monday. So that'll be the real test of character, won't it? To see whether this is just a blip in form or whether it's a sign of something more concerning.
Got to pick things up because they've got teams right on their table at the moment. We'll go down to the bottom of the table. Port Vale 0, Cambridge United 2. This is just a lovely, pleasant surprise. I was not expecting this. A first win in 7 games to Cambridge. First away win since the 25th of October. Been a long wait for that. Cambridge did have the joint worst away record in the division alongside Morecambe until these 3 points. And they look good value for it at Vale Park. Second half especially, which is where both of the goals came from. I don't know if there's any data out there about what the perfect time to score 2 goals in a game is, but I feel like getting 2 in the space of 4 minutes early in the second half is a pretty good way of going about it. You hit them with that Sam Smith sucker punch of going behind not long after coming back out to the second half, especially as it's not long after Port Vale actually had a decent chance of their own through Funso Ojo. And then you've got the lead double through Lloyd Jones not long after that. I've got to mention a pair of really nice balls into the box for the goals, by the way. First one from James Brophy, and then Conor McGrandle sticking it on the head of Jones. I'm convinced that Sam Smith turns into a different animal when he plays Staffordshire clubs. Convinced by it. I know James thinks that Christian Sadie is the bane of my existence for his performances with Shrewsbury this season, but it's always been Sam Smith for me. The guy always scores when Burton Albion play Cambridge United. He usually gets more than 1 in that game as well. Burton and Cambridge still have to play each other. That's going to be right at the start of May in what is the penultimate game of the season. I have to wonder if it will matter at that point, though. Cambridge right now are 5 points from safety even after this win. They played the same number of games as 23rd place Accrington Stanley and 20th place Oxford United, and they played 2 less than 22nd place Morecambe. Got a favourable last 3 games of the season in Accrington Stanley, Burton Albion and Forest Green Rovers. The 5 before that, however, are against Fleetwood Town, Bolton Wanderers, Peterborough United, Wycombe Wanderers and Plymouth Argyle. So they've got to pull some miracles out of the bag if they are going to still be in this mix by the time those final 3 roll around. This is nice though, really pleased to see. I'm always pleased when teams right down the bottom pick up wins because they are ready to come and it's a nice sight. Chris, we'll talk about another team down at the bottom away. Portsmouth 1, Forest Green Rovers 0.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could say that this is confirmation that Forest Green are gone. I mean, I think they've probably been gone for several weeks. It wasn't a classic performance. I think Portsmouth were very much easily the better side, but I also think their fans can probably expect more from them in the future. They struggled at times to break down Forest Green's back 5, but eventually they did find the way through in the 51st minute when Owen Dale met a long cross from Joe Rafferty. Forest Green Rovers' story of their season, the defence should have done better. It was quite an easy header. I think it should have been marked and defended better, but you know, it is what it is. For Portsmouth, I think they've come away with 3 points, and you know that's about it. Nothing to rave about from their performance, and Forest Green just continue to suffer in this league. And you know, I think they had a bit of hope with a 1-0 win over Sheffield Wednesday.
Was there any hope? If they're so far adrift at the moment.
Well, yeah, I say hope. I mean,
it was just a nice moment to have, really, wasn't it? Just a victory.
A nice moment, but you know, I think really that their fans just must be wanting this season over, regroup in the summer, and hope he can give things a go in League 2.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how they go next year under Duncan Ferguson. I know that he went for a case of trying to strike lightning twice. He went with the same formation that I talked about last week with the 2 natural midfielders in Pert Harris and Charlie Savage starting up top. Didn't work on this occasion. Portsmouth were just, as you say, dominant throughout. Probably should have got more than one goal, really.
They were reasonably tough to break down, Forest Green. You know, I don't think Portsmouth brought their finest performance to the game, but he's clearly trying to figure something out with a view to building around a new formation in the summer, perhaps.
Well, there was a lot of turnover in January window, and I wonder. I felt at the time, I remember feeling it. It kind of felt a bit like they were covering all bases with it. They were going to have a go at trying to survive, but if they didn't, they were halfway towards building a team to go through in League 2. And it does feel like the case, and yeah, I think I don't know mathematically when it's going to get confirmed. It can't be far off, just with the gap at the moment.
What, the 12 points off it with how many games to go?
7 to go.
7 to go. So you know, it
depends on the results, but it could be the end of the Easter weekend. We'll
yeah.
just have to see what happens. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt for us that Forest Green Rovers are going to go in what is their main League One season. It's proved a very difficult one, despite some rare moments to enjoy. Harry, Wycombe Wanderers 2, Milton Keynes Dons 2.
Yeah, so obviously MK Dons have just come into this off the back of those 3 crucial wins against relegation rivals, but I actually think this might be their most impressive performance in recent weeks. I mean, Adams Park is a difficult place to go in this league, and Wycombe are still a side that are very much pushing for the playoffs, even if they are on a pretty difficult run of form at the minute. This match meaning that they've only had 2 wins in their first 8 games under Matt Bloomfield. So Daniel Harvey gave MK an early lead as Jonathan Lako broke into the box. His ball across goal was only cleared as far as Connor Grant, and he was able to set up Harvey to prod home. Wycombe equalised midway through the half as MK Dons were once again undone by a set piece. The free kick was curled into the box by Joe Jacobson. Anthony Stewart completely missed his clearing header, and David Wheeler was at the back post just to nod home. Wycombe had further chances to go ahead throughout the first half, but they weren't able to get any of them on target. But 10 minutes into the second half, they did go in front. MK Dons failing to defend another free kick. Lewis Wing's low drive on goal was blocked by the wall. But TJ DeBar was quickest to react. He had time to kick it at thin air first and then cross it back in to find a criminally unmarked David Wheeler, who was volleyed at home his second of the game. Too many times this season, though, MK Don's problem has been an inability to get back into these kind of games. On this occasion, they were able to, thanks to some individual brilliance from Jonathan Leko, who has been an absolutely brilliant signing since coming in January. He picked up in a congested box, created some space for himself and curled it absolutely brilliantly into the far corner beyond Max Stryjek. Even though they've only come away from this one with a point, they're now 5 points clear of the relegation zone, obviously helped out by those 3 wins. But it's a frustrating one for Bloomfield's chairboys. They're still only 2 points off the playoffs somehow, despite this bad run of form at the minute. Obviously, Derby dropping points recently. And if they do end up falling short, I can't help but feel this is going to be one of those games that they look back on and wonder what if.
There's been a few of those this season. I've felt really since Bloomfield's come in, they've just been a bit inconsistent, Wycombe. You're just not quite sure. You look at their results, a mixture of wins, draws and defeats in there. We knew we were going with Ainsworth. I think we always felt it was going to be a bit of a different feeling having Bloomfield in there because it was been so perfect under Ainsworth for so many years, and we'll see how they build in the future. I think the playoffs is still not likely for me to end up in there, even if they are close at the moment. Pleased for MK Dons. That's a positive result. I think I mentioned last week, you've got those 3-1 nils against sides right down the bottom of the table with you. We want to see how they could fare against more competitive, difficult opposition. That is a very good point, I think, away at Adams Park. And mentioned of David Wheeler, I think he's got one of the best celebrations in football. I love when he just pulls out. I don't know if it's the lawnmower or the bike or whatever it is, but because his name's Wheeler, he just goes and pulls out. Great celebration. And Wheeler's one of those, I'm convinced, just ghosts into the box. He's just impossible to mark. I'm convinced half of his goals are just because no one ever picks him up. He just seems to have the ability to just...
the case.
Yeah,
nobody knows where he was in this game.
Yeah, it just seems to ghost in the space every single time, pops up with it too. He's been a great contributor for Wycombe over the years. Chris, another 2-2, Fleetwood Town 2, Exeter City 2.
Yeah, and exciting, but I think, ultimately meaningless game. But, it looked like a decent crowd at Fleetwood and they were certainly entertained. I mean, my favourite moment of the match was Jay Lynch's save right at the start of the game. I don't know if you've seen this one, but it was absolutely fantastic. The ball's played across goal, headed at the far post, and he somehow got across and made a really acrobatic save. Anyone listening, go and watch it. It is absolutely wonderful. Marriott opened the scoring for Fleetwood inside the first 20 minutes, where he did well to meet his marker and fire home. Kevin McDonald levelled things up 10 minutes later, capping off an excellent team move. I mean, there was some really nice football from both teams in this one, actually. They might not have a great deal to play for, but you can certainly see that both sides were trying to at least end the season on a high and perhaps try and work through some of the more technical sides of the game. 5 minutes later, Marriott regained Fleetwood's lead. He poked home a Harvey McMadden's cross, and Fleetwood, I mean, it was a really good second half again, and they were denied 3 points in the last moments. That thanks to Pierce Sweeney's second goal of the season, which he managed to get following a deeply crossed corner. So yeah, really exciting game, and I think both teams will be pretty pleased with that, and the Exeter fans. It's a good way to go home.
It's a mammoth trip, isn't it? Worth it for a 91st minute equaliser, definitely.
I don't know what the numbers were, but it looked like a decent following.
It did, yeah. I think Fleetwood have got a habit with conceding stoppage time goals. Actually, it's been a big frustration to them at points across the entire season. I'm pleased for Jack Marriott because he's not had that big a contribution since he's come in January. Nice brace here. Kevin McDonald, I think, has got 3 and 6 for Exeter. He's just added a little bit of quality he's brought to their midfield.
Yeah, I do like him for sure.
Yeah, great. Pair of sides who, completely agree. Good seasons, I think we have to say, all in all. Bit of concern about Fleetwood maybe at the start. They pulled away, got themselves to middle. Exeter have been great throughout the entire campaign.
Yeah, Exeter, I mean, I was unsure how they'd adapt to this season, but, in 11th place now, there's still I think they'll just be trying to get as high up the table
Well, they've
as possible.
still got, I think 6 of the top 7 left to play Exeter. Some of them at home, some of them away, so they could have quite a big external influence on this promotion and playoff race, actually, especially when you see how they can turn it up what they did against Barnsley.
Yeah, for sure. And as I say, I think they'll be trying to push on, get as high up as they can for the end of the season. And, who knows what they can do next season. They seem to be a really well-run club.
Absolutely. 2 more results to mention in League One. Pair of goalless draws. Peterborough United 0, Oxford United 0 at London Road, and Cheltenham Town 0, Burton Albion 0 at Whaddon Road. I'll run through the League One table. Sheffield Wednesday with that draw are back on top. They've got 80 points from 39 games. Plymouth Argyle were in Wembley action today. They've got 80 points from 38 in the second. Ipswich Town right on their tail in third, 78 from 38. Barnsley fourth, 75 from 38. Bolton Wanderers are 5th on 64 from 38. Peterborough United have got up into the playoff places, 64 from 39. They've got goal difference, meaning that they're ahead of 7th place Derby County, who also have 64 from 39. Wycombe Wanderers in 8th on 62 from 39. Portsmouth in 9th on 61 from 39. Shrewsbury had a +6 goal difference at the start of the weekend. It is now 0. That's what defeats like that to Charlton will do to you. I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry, Shrewsbury fans, I apologise. I won't bring up that result anymore because I still get talked about that 5-0 defeat to Morecambe. So I'll let that one go to you guys for your own sake. Down at the bottom, Forest Green Rovers, inevitable relegation coming, 26 points from 39 games. Cambridge United, little bit of hope with that win at Port Vale. They're 23rd on 33 from 38. Morecambe 22nd on 34 from 40. Accrington Stanley 21st on 35 from 38. Oxford United, decent point in Peterborough, I have to say, against the form side. 20th place, 38 from 38. MK Dons 19th on 40 from 39. Burton Albion 18th on 42 from 37. Let's drop down and take a look at the world's best 4th tier.
League 2.
League 2. Now, it was only last week that we had quite a good conversation about the relegation battle at the bottom of the 4th tier. There was a 5-point gap at the time between 23rd place and safety. Had a belief that Hartlepool United, who occupied 23rd, are actually capable of picking up points, but the question we had was about who above them would drop enough points to let Pools catch them. Well, just a week after that conversation, that 5-point gap is down to just 2. And it is primarily because of the results that happened at Victoria Park. Hartlepool United 2, Swindon Town 1. I am getting very used to seeing Hartlepool scoring late goals. Really used to it. I was up there in County Durham for their frantic 3-3 draw with Walsall that happened at the end of February where they got late goals there. There's been late goals to earn draws against Northampton Town and Leyton Orient, and Hartlepool have once again put on the late show at the Victoria Park. Hartlepool go behind in this game in just the 4th minute. It probably gets lost to memory because of what happens after, but it is a really, really good hit from Russian Hepburn Murphy. It's got to be 25 yards out, fairly central position, a really good goal. But just like what we've seen for weeks now, Hartlepool do look capable of getting games back level, even if their general play doesn't really indicate that they will. They're not especially dominant, not especially at the best, but they do find moments. I think Swindon actually had the better of this match overall, but once again, the hosts are just able to create single moments that just prove decisive. The equaliser here is in the 88th minute. It's a nicely worked move down the left-hand side, finished off by Connor Jennings. It's goals in consecutive games for him now. At that point, Hartlepool are looking at another draw. It would be a 6th consecutive one in a row. As John Askey, their manager, says himself, draws are just not going to be enough to Hartlepool with the situation they're currently in. They need to win more matches, and they end up getting the wins one right at the end. It is a 94th minute winner. Hartlepool get possession on the halfway line. It's Oliver Thinney. He drives forward with the ball, and his strike to win the game, I actually think it's pretty similar to the one that Hepburn Murphy scores for Swindon at that same end of the pitch at the beginning of this game. It's a brilliant, powerful strike from range, flies past Solbryn. Thinney has been a bit part player since joining Hartlepool from Crewe Alexandra in January. He's been an unused substitute for each of Hartlepool's last 4 games. He had been brought onto the pitch he'd played maybe 5-6 minutes before actually scoring that goal right at the end of stoppage time. So
came on in the 86th.
Yeah,
scored in the 93rd.
some impact to make by the midfielder, and that is some way to get what is your first goal for your new club. Askey is absolutely right when he says about how significant this win is and how it puts pressure onto their relegation rivals. And you'd have to say none more so, Harry, than Crawley Town, who were away at Mansfield Town yesterday and lost 4-1.
Yeah, what do you say about this Crawley team? Every time it looks like things are starting to go a little bit well for them, something new crops up and goes wrong. This is the latest in a long line of things just coming in to completely knock their spirit at Crawley. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to this. And actually, they were playing a Mansfield team who were coming into this 4 games without a win, and who'd only scored 1 goal in that period.
Massively depleted team as well. Real injury problems at Mansfield.
Yeah, so this was exactly what they needed, and a very resolute performance from them to give themselves a chance of staying in reach of the playoff places. They went ahead after just 5 minutes through captain Ollie Clark. He had time to control it in the middle of the box before finishing well. Both sides created chances as the half drew on. Davis Keeler-Dunn had an effort cleared off the line. Dom Telford was unable to score, having been sent through one-on-one. And then Rhys Oates was also unable to score, having been sent through one-on-one for Mansfield. So they went in 1-0 at half time, but it took only 2 minutes of the second half for the Stags to find the second goal. Lucas Akins was given far too much time on the left wing to put a cross into the box, where Alfie Kilgore was waiting to head home an impressive 4th goal since he signed for the club in January. I love a goal scoring centre back. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of tally he can build up in a full season next year. Shortly after that, they made it 3-0. The ball was sent down the right wing by Akins. Rhys Oates won his foot race quite comfortably with Joel Lynch, ran into the box and squared it unselfishly to Keeler-Dunn, who tapped into the empty net. Oates continued to cause problems for Mansfield, and he raced clear down that same wing again, attempted to set up Lucas Akins for what would have been an identical copy of the 3rd goal, but Corey Adai did well to save it. Keeler-Dunn was there, though, to add a 4th, after pouncing on a loose ball in the area. Crawley's only consolation came on 71 minutes. It was a neat 1-2 between left-back Mazida Gungbo and Ashi Nadesan, and it saw the former score his first goal for the club. Nigel Clough felt his team could have scored even more than they did, and I think he's probably right, to be honest. They had 27 shots across the match. Keeler-Dunn had that one cleared off the line. They had 2 efforts hit the woodwork in the second half. To use a real cliche, it could have racked up into a cricket score. And I think that's what's most concerning for Crawley is this wasn't just a case of Mansfield taking the chances. They were absolutely torn apart by this Mansfield side, who, like you say, weren't even at full strength. It will be interesting to see, with Hartlepool winning their game, with Harrogate picking up a point, how this affects the mentality of the squad. The relegation race is right back open again, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd rather visit Crawley than Hartlepool next season, to be honest.
You'd rather visit Crawley?
Well, I've been to Hartlepool.
I was going to say that's a much bigger trip than Hartlepool for you.
Yeah, well, I've been to Hartlepool before, so I need to take a new stadium off.
Okay. Interesting way to think about it. I thought I would have preferred the shorter trip, but okay. Yeah, Mansfield pushing just towards the edge of the playoffs are really valuable points to them. Crawley, you go and get that nice run of form, some favourable games, and we wondered how they'd fare with the less favourable games against tough opposition. And whilst MK Dons showed that they might be able to compete, Crawley just got taken apart, Harry. It worries me. I really don't think much of Corey Adai, the goalkeeper. I don't understand why he's been persisted with so much this season. Yeah,
I mean, I saw him play at Prenton Park and I wasn't overly impressed. His distribution's really not very good. Virtually every goal kick or clearance went straight off the pitch. For a goalkeeper of his size, I don't think he's good enough.
Yeah, well, this is Wagme's way, isn't it? They've been recruiting players on size rather than actual ability. It's the reason Tom Nichols is at Gillingham right now. And that was a smart idea, wasn't it?
They'll do well in the basketball next season, though.
Surprised they didn't get Ollie Hawkins in. Probably get Mike Thond up in, Chris? When he's finished the suspension, of course. Chris, we'll talk about another team down the bottom, and I'm really, really pleased to see them actually get a win. ASC Wimbledon 0, Rochdale 1.
Yeah, they're keeping the fight on, Rochdale, although it feels almost like it's prolonging the inevitable. difficult, not quite dead, but the club statement they released during the week sounds more like they're planning for life in the National League, as well as trying to restructure the club in general, which I think, assuming they do go down, they absolutely need to do, because things are a real mess at Scotland, I think. It's the first game since they parted ways with Jim Bentley and with Jim McNulty in the dugout.
How are you feeling on that decision?
Probably makes sense. I mean, I don't think Jim Bentley's quite given them the fight that they need. I don't think they've done it with a view that they'll be able to save their season. I think they've done it with a view that they can try and actually have a real think about how they want the club to go forwards. They've brought in this external advisory company to try and help them restructure things, and I think they'll be having quite a big think about how to go forwards with the club, and hopefully bring in the right guy to really help to build a good squad over the summer, and it sounds bad to say, but also survive in the National League, because I think...
No, I completely know what you mean. You got to look at Scunthorpe and be wary of that, the situation they're in. Rochdale's not too similar.
Exactly, and the parallels with Scunthorpe are actually quite close, but also, with Oldham, even with large investments, it's been a real shock to the system. So that they really need to get things right, and I think starting now is the best way to go about that. I think Danny Lloyd showed his value again yesterday. Brilliant goal in the 64th minute. Although Wimbledon looked the better side for much of the game, this was a really, really lovely move, lovely passing move, and it culminated with him just smashing it in from the edge of the box. I think he's been a really, really good signing for Rochdale, and it'd be nice if they can keep hold of him next season, although I think he's showing that he's very much capable of a football league football. Wimbledon, I think ultimately they didn't have a great deal to play for yesterday, and that was the difference between it. I think Rochdale players will still be half hoping that they can pull off a miracle, and I think that was sort of the difference. Wimbledon didn't quite have the cutthroat edge. But yeah, as I say, Rochdale just trying to perhaps pull off a miracle, but mostly try and think about next season, think carefully about how they can do okay in the National League.
Yeah, we should emphasise it's not completely over for Rochdale yet. That win does help them a lot. There is a big gap to make up, of course, in a limited amount of time.
8 points, so it's not totally...
It's not Forest Green, let's put it that way.
It's not Forest Green, and the way Hartlepool and Crawley are, you could imagine it happening, but I'm just not quite sure that they've got the fight in them.
I'd have to agree. I mean, I'm really pleased that Jim McNulty, who looks really cool with those glasses, by the way. I love his look. Something about his glass, I just think he looks really good. Pleased to Jim McNulty, who's taking interim role to the end of the season. He went with a change of formation. I know under Jim Bentley they've been persisting with a 3-5-2. He went for a flat 4-2. It really shows the ability of someone like Ethan Brearley, who's a young lad coming through their academy. He's such a good prospect. I have to feel if Rochdale do go down, even if Rochdale somehow stay up, really, he'll be moving on. I think he had a trial at Blackburn Rovers earlier in the season. Nothing quite came from that, but he feels like a player who's going to go a bit higher at the pyramid. And Danny Lloyd, yeah, just a guy who can just produce those little individual moments. I think in all three of Rochdale's last 3 positive results, he's contributed with goals. Really not an influential player for them.
I am just really quite worried about Rochdale going into next season, though. I mean, you look at the way things have been at the club. I know they had this whole thing with the hostile takeover, and the off the field issues never quite recovered from there. They've always been a club that's been run on a small budget. They don't get big crowds. And all of it just culminates into the National League football being very, very difficult for them next season if they don't get their act together.
There's something that just really annoys me about how you got Rochdale, you've had yourselves, Chris, Bury, you've got 3 clubs in the same region of the world where you've got 2 of the richest on the planet, and these 3 are all going to fall out of the Football League because of differing financial struggles. It really does annoy me.
Yeah, me too. And, falling into the National League is not easy because there's not financial restraints. So, next season there'll very likely be one of Notts County and Wrexham. There'll be Chesterfield. I think Oldham will be splashing a bit of money. It's not if you think the Football League is not a level playing field, the National League is even worse from that perspective. It's really, really horrible. It's a horrible league to be in.
Real shock to the system when you get down there, definitely. We've had a look at the bottom of the League 2 table. Let's move up to the top of it. This, though, a very tasty weekend in the 4th tier with all of the top 6 in action against each other, boys. We had the league leaders Leyton Orient at home to Carlisle United. Second was facing third as Northampton Town took on Stevenage. And fifth place Stockport County were hosting sixth place Salford City on Friday night. I couldn't help but look at all those fixtures and think, do you know who really needs to take advantage of this? The team in seventh. Knowing that someone above you is dropping points, you have an opportunity to climb up the table and get more into the mix with the teams above. The team in seventh ahead this weekend was Bradford City. They had an earlier kick-off on Saturday, and they very nearly threw the opportunity away. Bradford City 3, Grimsby Town 2. Time and time again, I always see people asking, what are Bradford City doing in League 2? How is a club of that size, with the fan base they have, playing fourth-tier football? There's a couple of reasons, I think. One is that past squads they've had, I think perhaps have been overrated by people like us. There's a perception maybe that plenty of the players in those groups are among the best in the division when they actually aren't, and they show it over the campaign. There's also been a certain, how do I say this? There's a kind of a depressing predictability about Bradford City games sometimes. A sense that when they're presented with a favourable opportunity, especially when at home, things just end up not going to plan. And there was a period in this game against Grimsby where you thought that might well end up happening again. It starts out brilliantly for the hosts. They're ahead inside 10 minutes to Alex Gilliard. Hesitation at the back, though, leads to Harry Clifton being fouled in the box for a Grimsby penalty. That's converted by Gavin Holohan. And Andy Smith, the whole City lonely, bundles the Mariners in front. So a Grimsby Town lead before half-time. I'm sure there's sections of the home crowd at the break thinking, here we go again. It's been a recurring story for Bradford City this season. They're really good away from home, the Bantams, but not to the same level of Valley Parade, and I have never been able to work out why. I've never been able to understand why Bradford can't perform to the same level at home as they are away. I've never worked it out.
I think it's this big crowd effect. You hear a lot of the sort of smaller teams in the league trying to take advantage of this when they visit the bigger side, the bigger crowds and the bigger sides in the league, where effectively if you can try and frustrate the home team, the fans get on their back, and then suddenly you've got a toxic atmosphere rather than a supportive atmosphere.
It's kind of like what you get when a big club, for example Derby County, comes down into League One. It becomes almost a cup final, doesn't it, for those small teams? If you're used to playing in front of a home crowd of 2,000 a week, and then you go up to Bradford and there's 18,000 watching you, you're going to give it that extra 10% and try and have the game of your life, aren't you? So I do genuinely think that has an impact.
I would kind of understand that in their third season, but Bradford have been at this level for a number of years now. Most of these clubs have done Valley Parade multiple times, and it still seems to be the same problem.
I think it's a mentality thing. I think Bradford fans will probably, very naturally get on the backs of players if they're frustrated, and it becomes a bit more difficult, and it's the sort of thing where a sports psychologist or something might be really useful for Bradford to try and just get them to be a bit more resilient in the face of that. Maybe.
It's something that's always confused me, though. Bradford's much stronger away record than the much stronger home. The second half of this game against Grimsby is dominated by the Bantams, though. They generate more than 2 XG in this second half alone, more than 3 XG across the whole game. Grimsby, meanwhile, don't even have a shot on target in the second half. That dominance is rewarded by an equaliser from Jamie Walker just after the half hour. Sam Stubbs is denied a goal minutes later with a foul given on Max Croker in the build-up. I'm not sure on it. There is a clip going around. I think he'd be pretty disappointed if Bantams done in that situation that goal has not been given. You cannot have a Bradford City game at the moment, however, with this many goals and not see a certain number 9 get onto the score sheet. Lo and behold, it's Andy Cook who scores with about 10 minutes left to play, set up with a great ball by the returning Matt Derbyshire from the right-hand side. 23 league goals this season for the 32-year-old. This one is the finish of a truly accomplished centre-forward. I love everything about the movement and the technique of the goal. He really is dragging Bradford City, kicking and screaming towards a promotion push. He is so far ahead of the rest in the Bradford goal-scoring charts, and he's very close to hitting the numbers that we've only really previously seen from him during his non-league career. He's never really done this at an EFL level before, and he's absolutely flying. Bradford City's first win in 5, up to 6 following that win and results elsewhere. It's so often the Andy Cook show to Bradford City. I cannot put into words how crucial that guy is to them.
He scored 48% of Bradford's goals.
It's a ridiculous statistic, isn't it?
The cat just walked back in. I thought he was about to make another contribution.
He's got an opinion on Andy Cook as well. Unexpected cat. Brilliant. Harry, we will move on to the focus on the teams in the top 6 and start with the only one of them that actually ended in a victory. Leyton Orient 1, Carlisle United 0.
Yeah, that leaves Leyton Orient 11 points clear of the playoffs and with a game in hand. You've got to feel, even if the league title's not quite wrapped up yet, they're going to be in those top 3 come the end of the season. This is a big win for them. It wasn't exactly a classic, which I suppose is what you'd expect from a game between two teams with so much to play for this late in the season. Both teams went in at half-time without having registered a single shot on target, mostly down to resolute defending, I would say, which was made more difficult for Carlisle by the loss of both captain Morgan Feeney and Finn Back to hamstring injuries in that first half. Ben Barkley and Jordan Gibson brought on in their place. Seemed like a match that was ultimately going to be decided by two of the league's best defences, only for Orient to win it with one of the most fortunate or unfortunate goals of the season, depending which side of the coin you're on. Ruel Sotirio found himself being closed down on the edge of the box, and so he basically just hit a speculative shot at goal. It didn't look like a particularly dangerous one. I think it probably would have just run through to Thomas Holly in goal. Instead, it deflected first off Huntington's boot, and then the knee of John Mellish, with the latter's touch taking it looping over the goalkeeper and into the back of the net. Orient were given a nervy end to the game. Charlie Kelman was sent off for a second yellow card following a rash challenge on Mellish. The Carlisle defender was very much the main character of this match. He then had a golden chance to equalise late on. The ball was given away in midfield to Callum Guy. He took a heavy touch, which Jordan Lydon and Ed Turns both left for each other to deal with, and that allowed Mellish to break into the box and take it round Lawrence Vigouroux. You'd have thought it was guaranteed to go in, but he scuffed his shot and Omar Beckles was there to clear it away. So Carlisle now find themselves 2 points off the automatic places, having played a game more than third place Stevenage, but they're also now only 2 points ahead of informed Stockport and Bradford, having been in such a strong position over the last few months. I don't know about you, from a distance, Orient's form has looked a bit underwhelming recently, but this match takes them to 10 games unbeaten.
Quite a lot of draws in that run, isn't there?
There are a lot of draws, but the thing is, the teams below them haven't been able to take advantage of that, and they've mostly relied on that early season form to be where they are, but they're still just ticking over, and nobody's really pushing them in the same way that Exeter sort of pushed Forest Green towards the end of last season. So yeah, I think, like I say, I'm pretty confident they're already promoted. I think Richie Wellens now will have his side fully focused on getting the hands on the league title.
Go and secure that promotion first, and it feels like they're really not far off that now, definitely with that 11-point gap. And I think this is what Orient have become now. They were a team, I think, at the start of the season that looked to try and blitz sides, score as many goals as they can in a single game, and now it's a case of we'll get that goal, we'll get that individual moment, and then we'll just shut you out and keep you at bay.
Yeah, and it's worked perfectly for them this season, hasn't it? I suppose if you're being a bit pessimistic, the question is, how does that work when you're one of the underdogs in the league next season when you're up in League One? But that's something for Richie Wellens to work out over the summer.
It is. For now, just go and secure that promotion because they're so close to getting it. It's so close, and it does feel like the title's going to come their way. I
was just going to say, sorry, given the last few seasons that they've had, just enjoy it. They've been one of those teams who were down in a bad place, and it's nice to see them back up doing well again.
Yeah, it really is. I remember when he took over about a year ago, actually. It's a bit over a year since he took charge, and Orient were kind of glancing over their shoulder at the bottom end of the table, a bit unsure about a real drop-off in form under Kenny Jackett. And he has transformed his team into one that's looking highly likely to be in League One next season. Excellent from him. Northampton Town 1, Stevenage 1. This was largely a tale of two halves to the old cliche. Northampton Town, and particularly Louis Perry, the number 9, dominated the first half chances, Stevenage having the clear better of the opportunities at the half time. Northampton's opener is scored by Perry. It's his 6th goal in 36 league appearances this season. There is a bit of me which thinks that he could be someone who actually has a prolific season in him at some point. I really do like him a lot. He's got a great physical outlet up top. He can be a bit of a battering ram at times. I know James mentioned last week that Northampton, despite all their injury problems, have actually got a very good front line of Sam Hoskins, Louis Perry, Mitchell Pinnock, and it can cause a lot of problems for opponents. You really do not want them to be absent from the team for a period of time. Louis Perry has some big opportunities throughout both halves of this game, but it is certainly Stevenage who edged the second 45. Danny Rose has a header from a corner that's powered onto the crossbar before Jamie Reid eventually gets Stevenage level with what is just a brilliant goal. It all originates from his pirouette in the middle of the pitch, which just completely sends William Hondermark, completely leaves him on his own. He hits a low shot closer to goal, which ends up going off both posts before going into the net. I quite like the Stevenage crowd in the background behind the goal. They're just desperate for confirmation that move has actually led to the ball going in before celebrating. It's one post and they can't believe it. It's two and they can't believe it. And then it gets over and they get to celebrate. It's quite like watching the crowd. Jamie Reid, by the way, had been on the pitch for about a minute before he scored that goal. Really quick impact there. He's been something of an impact player throughout the whole season. Luke Norris has been a regular starter up top for Stevenage, and there's often been quite a lot of rotation with his strike partner. Jordan Roberts was the man picked up top alongside him yesterday. Stevenage able to revert to the 5-3-2 now that Terence Van Kooten is back available to play. I always think that trio at the back of Van Kooten, Carl Bigiani, Dan Sweeney, it's really provided that solid base that has allowed Stevenage to have the promotion push this season. Really good to see the three reunited again this weekend, and hopefully so for the rest of the season, because that will give Stevenage every chance of getting over the line as one of the top three teams. Chris, on Friday night it finished Stockport County 1, Salford City 1.
Yeah, Edgeley Park was rocking for this one, bit of a playoff prepping. 10,000 fans in attendance. I mean, it just looked absolutely fantastic. That Cheadle end behind the goal looked sold out. Looked like a real event. And Stockport took an early lead through Connor Evans in the 6th minute. Carl Noyle forced his way to the byline. I mean, really, the resilience he showed to throw the defenders off his back was really well. And he played the ball back to Evans, who was sort of on the 6-yard line, and he hit it with the outside of his foot. Really sort of quick finish, lovely finish, and they wheeled away celebrating. Paddy Madden on his 100th appearance for County hit the post not long after, hoping to double County's league, and it was really end-to-end stuff. It was really quite exciting, really meeting the moment. But disappointingly for County, Salford levelled 6 minutes into the second half with one of the finishes of the season. Callum Hendry controlled Jason Lowe's throw and just hit it from about 25-30 yards out, and it lobbed Ben Hinchcliffe into the top left corner. And
can I be honest? There's a little bit of me disappointed Hinchcliffe doesn't dive. Yeah, I feel it kind of takes. I'm being a bit of a moaner here, a bit of a downer, but there's something about it when a goalkeeper doesn't dive, it kind of takes away from the goal a little bit.
I think it just totally caught him by surprise. I mean, he had absolutely no right to hit that.
No.
Stockport still very much keeping their eyes on the automatic promotion spots, as we've said, 3 points behind Stevenage and Carlisle tripping up. But I think it's only come away with 1-1, but this was a really entertaining match, and still all to play for both of these teams.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we could maybe see these two meeting in the playoff semi-finals if things go their way with the way the table is at the moment.
And I came across a match report when I was reading into this from a couple of years ago where the crowd was 5,000.
Yeah, they met in the National League North, didn't they? Not too long ago.
National League North and National League, and I'm sure I saw them play Salford at some point in the National League North, and it's just strange now seeing them as playoff contenders, both of them in League Two.
Yeah, look what Oldham are. Sorry.
Well, thanks for that. But for now.
Could not. Yeah, for now. Okay, fair enough. Harry, Barrow 2, Gillingham 1.
Yeah, it was a late heartbreak for Gills, having made an 11-hour round trip to watch this one. But a win that keeps Barrow just about in playoff contention. And I tell you what, I bet David's glad he's not here this weekend to have to talk about this one.
That's why he's not here.
The home side took the lead after 9 minutes. Glenn Morris initially saved from Patrick Brow's effort, but the rebound fell to Josh Gordon. His shot was then blocked on the line by Max Amer, but it bounced cruelly off the back of Morris and into the net. Though it was scored in fortunate circumstances, the goal was deserved for Barrow, who completely dominated the first half. It restricted Gillingham to just a single shot all half, which was off target from Robbie McKenzie. Second half was a mostly cagey affair, but the game sprung back to life with 10 minutes to go, as Gillingham grabbed an equaliser through Connor Masterson, who powered a header into the roof of Paul Farman's goal after he wasn't marked at an Alex McDonald corner. They must have thought they would be heading home with a point, but in the 94th minute, A Ben Whitfield's shot was blocked and fell kindly to Robbie Gotts on the edge of the area, who just smashed it past Morris for the winner. Gills obviously deserve a lot of credit for turning things around in the second half of this season, and on current form, I think they'd be up in the playoffs. However, they still only won twice away from home all season, and those were against Rochdale and Colchester, who are two teams who've been down in that relegation battle with them. And so there's still a lot of work to do for them over the summer. I'm expecting them to be one of the busier clubs. In particular, I noticed Conor Masterson's contract at QPR expires in the summer. He's somebody that I'd love to see them go back in for, try and get that done early, and bring him back to Gillingham on a permanent basis. With this win, Barrow are still only 5 points off the playoffs, and they could find themselves sneaking in. But I think with given the form of the teams currently in there, they're probably just about going to fall short this time around. A lot of credit to Pete Wild. He's achieved so much within the season, considering where they finished last year. He's done a brilliant job, and I'm sure they'll be up and around there again next season if he's still there.
Lovely chance, Chris, to get some more Pete Wild loving. What a brilliant job he's done with Barrow, by the way, because this team, since getting promoted to the Football League, has been in relegation battles the 2 seasons before. And even if they do end up away from the playoffs this year, it's a really brilliant sign of progress under him.
Yeah, just a spectacular coach, and he's done a wonderful job with Barrow, and giving Barrow fans real hope. And I don't know what he'll do next season. It'd be nice if he sticks around with Barrow though, because I think they've got a good thing going there.
I would like to think he would be in there for the long run.
I'd also expect that there'll be teams in League One and possibly even the Championship keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, brilliant progress for them, and I'm so pleased with the way Barrow are going this season. And I'll be honest with you, I've kind of got them a little bit in my bullish category at the minute for next season, depending on how they grow.
Oh, you've ruined it now.
No, not at all. I'm allowed to be bullish. I don't use the words we don't forbid, crepuscular Mustangs and all that. I call it bullish. Is what I call them.
Okay.
Pleased to them. They're not
crepuscular Mustangs.
Yeah, yeah, not out of the playoff race just yet, Barrow, but still outsiders for sure. That is a great late win over Gillingham though, and I love when Barrow put out a video of Pete Wild just this pumping the crowd afterwards as well. Brilliant, great for them. Chris, Doncaster.
Easy content.
Doncaster Rovers 0, Crewe Alexandra 2.
Yeah, probably ends Doncaster's very vague hopes of sneaking into
I
the
don't know. I don't know why it's
but-
still getting talked about. I ended that months ago with them.
Well, yeah, it was very slim to be truthful. Goals from Courtney Baker Richardson and Conor O'Riordan for Crewe, who, in all honesty, dominated the game. They don't have a whole lot to play for. They're just trying to end their season on a high. The first goal, a cross came into the Doncaster defence and it totally bamboozled them, and it didn't seem like a particularly difficult cross to deal with. And then it was drilled in by Baker Richardson via a deflection. Really, really sloppy defending. And then 5 minutes later, again, really, really dodgy defending. Corner came in and there was a looping header that seemed to be in the air for an age. And then O'Riordan, I've said 2 yards from goal. I mean, he was effectively stood on the goal line, just sort of nodded it in. Doncaster looked better in the second half, but, ultimately didn't really have enough fight to get anything from the game, and going 2 goals down in the first half, it gives you a lot to battle against. So yeah, not a whole lot to play for either teams in this game, but a good win for Crewe.
Did you hear the boo when that second goal went into O'Riordan?
It was.
Around the crowd.
It was just...
It's getting toxic over there. They have been really poor this year, Doncaster.
If we're talking about Barrow as one to watch for next season, is it too soon to talk about Doncaster as one to be worried about for next season?
I don't know. People are not happy with the direction that club seems to be going in.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be worried about them, but things don't seem to be going the right way. We've talked to them as possibly sneaking into the playoffs all season, but they've never quite got going, have they? They've always been just okay at best.
Massively inconsistent across the whole season. I think they're almost level for the number of wins and defeats they've had, and they've barely drawn any games this year. They've been winning runs and losing runs.
And I can't blame the response to that second goal yesterday. I mean, as I said, both of the goals they conceded were down to really, really sloppy defending. That the first one's worse than the second in my opinion, but the second one's just complete frustration with the fact that he's been able to get. I think there's 4 defenders around the lad, and he's able to basically get an unchallenged header 2 yards from goal. it's not good.
Talking about a side who'd been freshly relegated, much like Crewe have, and I think Doncaster generally wanted to go and challenge for an immediate return to the third tier. It's not happening for them. It's really not. I know ITV keep bringing up these playoff chances, and as I've said, I gave up on them years ago because I just do not trust Doncaster to put a strong enough run together.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a tough ask for them, and that, as you say, their form is so inconsistent. Just looking at the last 6, loss, win, loss, draw, loss.
It's just miserable. And worry a bit to Schofield. Wonder if he'll be persisted with, because his arrival has just not had the desired effect. It's a really poor season to Doncaster, and not a particularly big one to Crewe.
They seem to have got never quite. I mean, for years now, actually, for a very long time, I never seem to be convinced by their manager choices.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
And you know, I know it's a culture in football now generally, but they never seem to persist for very long with a manager either.
No, and I think there's questions as well over their general recruitment of players, the ones they bring in.
They spend a lot of money on wages for substandard players.
I'd have to agree. 3 more games in League 2 to mention. Walsall 1, Sutton United 1. Sutton's opener is from Alistair Smith, who gets a volley in from a corner. They hang on until the 95th minute when Walsall equalise. It's a Tom Knowles free kick spilled into the path of Isaac Hutchinson to snatch a point for the Saddlers at the Best Scots Stadium. On Friday night, we also had Tranmere Rovers 1, Harrogate Town 1. Opener for Harrogate from Luke Armstrong, who volleyed in. Tranmere Rovers' equaliser is a Rhys Hughes free kick. Did it go down as an own goal, Harry? I think, for Mark Oxley.
Yeah, so it hit the post, came back out and hit Oxley on
the worst kind of own goals, though. You could do nothing about them.
Well, I think we should give it to Rhys Hughes. It was his first goal, and it was a really well-hit free kick.
I don't think Mark Oxley wants that one.
I think Mark Oxley would be happy, yeah.
I think he probably would be, yeah. And the other game to mention, Colchester United 0, Newport County 0 in Essex. League 2 table to finish. Leyton Orient lead the way, still 77 points from 38 games. Northampton Town are second. I mean, I hyped up the top 6 playing each other this week, and nothing's actually really changed in the top 6 apart from Bradford going up a place because everyone else drew, and then the one who were already clear went and won themselves. So maybe not that significant a weekend at the top of League 2 as I thought it might be. But Northampton second, 70 points from 39. Stevenage third, 68 from 38. Carlisle United are 4th, 66 from 39. Stockport County 5th, 64 from 39. Bradford City 6th, 64 from 38. Salford City 7th, 63 from 39. You've got Mansfield Town in 8th on 61 from 38. Barrow in 9th on 58 from 39. Sutton United in 10th on 57 from 39. Down at the bottom, Rochdale 29 from 39. Hartlepool United 23rd, 35 from 39. Crawley Town 22nd, 37 from 39. Colchester United, I only briefly mentioned a 0-0. They've got to be as much in the relegation conversation as Crawley and Hartlepool are right now. Things do not look good there at the moment for them. They're 23rd, 38 from 39. Harrogate Town 20th on 39 from 38. That is going to wrap up this episode this week. Chris, Harry, thank you very much for your contributions.
Absolute pleasure.
Join us again after the Easter break for more from the world's best third and fourth tiers. We'll see you then. Goodbye.